So we have Abraham doing what we saw him do previously in, I think, Genesis 13 with Pharaoh. He's doing the same thing with this Philistine king of Gerar, Abimelech. And, you know, like I was saying in the Torah portion with Wes, as we reviewed those chapters earlier, this seems to be the common fear of the land, because this, like we already talked about with the men of Shechem, the testament of 12 patriarchs and jubilees expounded upon the motivations of the men of Shechem, which was to steal these wives. And so therefore this kind of seems to be Abraham's same fear, right? Surely there's no one in this land that fears God. They're going to take my wife and kill me. You know, and he's back in the land of Canaan, not in Egypt anymore. So to me, this is kind of like a prevailing fear amongst men, swords. I mean, in light of the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, those tribes, they were lawless like this.
Man.
See a hot woman take her, kill the husband. You know what I mean? And it's horrible, but this is what wickedness does.
Right.
So here in the summary, I've just got there's, besides the interaction with Abimelech, there's just basically some following his movements, you know, going from Hebron to the mountains of Gerar, then down to the well of Oath. Abimelech, king of Gerar, he took Sarah, thinking he was going to marry her, thought he was just a sister, because Abraham, that's what he told her. This is the second time, by the way, he's done this.
Right.
Isaac even does it later.
Right.
So it's like Isaac picked this up from his father. And then Yahweh warns Abimelech in a dream that he will die if he touches Sarah. So this, to me, is fascinating. How many stories in the modern day have you heard from people that do not know or worship God, yet God comes to them in a dream to warn them about a judgment that they would receive if they don't change their behavior?
Oh, I haven't. I don't
Exactly.
know anybody. Yeah.
This is where, and if it is happening with like politicians or heads of state or commanders and generals of armies, we don't hear about it in the mainstream, right?
Right. Facts.
I heard when I was in church one time, I heard a missionary from China had come through and said that there was this was like in 2001. And he said there was this huge funeral in China that like 10,000 people attended because this guy that died was a well-known guru. And so I'm using the word guru. I think that's an Indian term, but he was a respected sage in that community or whatever, that town. Yeah. 10,000 people showed up at the funeral, a whole bunch of people, big media attention. It was a big deal. And supposedly at the funeral, on the casket, Jesus appeared sitting on the casket and said, "I am the resurrection. I am the way and the life," and then just disappeared. And the whole place just broke out, just started scrambling, just ran and was like terrified. But as a result of it, supposedly the underground Christian church in China came in and mopped up the pieces and brought a bunch of believers in after that startling event.
Yo, that's deep.
This was this guy's testimony, So, and I'm sitting there going, may the Father do that in America,
Yeah. Straight up.
So that's the only story I've ever heard in my modern lifetime about something even closely related to this type of concept, where a pagan king, Yahweh is just like, I'm gonna, in a sense, communicate with this guy to the point where he's cognizant of him, knowing that Yahweh is trying to communicate with him and fearing the judgment being spoken to him, and then responding and changing course as a result of this, right? And not just throwing it off as if, I had some weird dream last night,
right?
And then not take it seriously, and then the judgment comes. No, this dude take it seriously, interacted, tried to defend himself. Hey, I thought I did this innocently. What do you mean?
Abimelech seemed like a stand-up dude. When I read right, and I think he's gonna come back up in chapter 22. Is it chapter 22 where they form the
covenant, the treaty? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He just seemed like a stand-up dude. And it's like he said, he was like, y'all said y'all were brother and sister. And I like how when he cleared them, he still called them siblings, right? He was like, I've given all this stuff to your brother. Right. That's right. Right. But I like how I really love how y'all got down in this account, right? It makes me recall, like James 2, and what is it, Second Chronicles 20, where Abraham is called God's friend. And I just really like how Yah like stepped in the situation. He was like, he's like, listen, give the woman back and nobody gets hurt, right? Like,
That's right. That's right.
you didn't know what you were doing, but this is just a warning. You know,
Yeah.
I really love that account.
Yeah, it's true. He came in to rescue the righteous, um, because like, and it's interesting though because in a sense, Abimelech did do the right thing when he was warned, but in a
Hmm.
sense, Abraham's fear is justified
I hear
because
you.
they did take his wife,
Right, right.
and if I'm not mistaken, let me go back real quick and look at it again. It says, um, "You are good as dead because the woman for she's Abimelech had gone out." Okay, so it doesn't maybe that was with Pharaoh where he says you treated Abraham good on account of his sister. But ultimately they didn't kill him, so they did spare him and they did take his wife. So it's like he
Hmm.
was partially justified in his paranoia.
Hmm.
But then thankfully Abimelech does do the right thing. So I
Right.
think it's interesting. And then of course he tells them, you can go. Um, he gives them silver to go off, and he's like, "You're completely clear." And I'm pretty sure he tells them, you can verse 15, you can settle wherever you please. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, he's like, "Look, in all the territory that have authority over, you can live wherever you want." So he's not kicking them out of the land like Pharaoh did. Pharaoh kicked them out of the land.
Oh yeah,
They had to go back to
yeah.
Canaan. So it's interesting. And of course, just like with Pharaoh in this account, he increases in his wealth as a result of this,
Mm,
which is interesting.
yeah.
It's
I,
interesting. And
I
I love this passage in Genesis 20 simply because this is the only place Abraham is actually called a prophet.
I knew it. I was waiting for that part. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love how Abraham had to intercede for Abimelech. The Most High specifically said that, right?
Yeah.
When he was talking to Abimelech. So yeah, that's deep. You don't often
Yeah.
hear too many people refer to Abraham as a prophet. Not too many people in Christian theology. I at least I haven't.
Yeah, me neither. That's why I think it's interesting to point out because, this is a big deal, you know. Remember the verse about do not touch thy Lord's anointed, and things like
Mhm.
that. And it just,
Yes.
this is kind of a big deal. You're going after his prophet. He's definitely not only is he considered a friend, not only is he a priest, but he's now being called a prophet too. Which it's great, but I I I just think the father definitely was in all the good and the how do I say this? Abraham's not perfect by any means.
Right.
He shows incredible moments of courage and incredible moments of fear, and he's not perfect by any means, but the Father is getting him through all the way.
Mhm.
Like, he's pulling him through these events and these times, and this while he's living in the land of his enemies, people that
Right.
are opposed to Yahweh's covenant, Yahweh's behavior, Yahweh's promise of the kingdom come, people that are worshiping false idols. But so all along the way, Abraham is being protected and pulled through in these rough situations. It's an encouraging story to me.
And since for many of us, there's many brothers and sisters. So I was telling you, there's been a couple of Bible studies I've been going to. The one in the city where my mom lives in, there was a brother who I think he was watching one of your broadcasts that I was on, and I think that I had said, I'm originally from Sassoon, and this brother reached out to me, and it's a trip, man, because I went to a couple of the Bible studies out there, visiting my mom on Shabbat, and there are so many brothers and sisters who are moving out of California, right, because of what they're experiencing. It mirrors a lot of what you see Abraham being surrounded by, especially with Sodom and Gomorrah. California. I'm trying to be careful because I know that the algorithm triggers certain words and
Sure.
certain, but there are certain behaviorisms in California that are championed, um, that we know that the Torah it very explicitly calls an abomination, and it California is making it extremely hard to just be neutral, to just live a good Christian life, make your money, pay your taxes, pay your bills, and just stay out of people's business. It's almost like it's encroaching upon you the same way the mob came at Lot's door. Like Lot wasn't asking for none of that. You know what I'm saying? So it puts people in a position where they have to move, but it's people are unprepared. A lot of the moves that these brothers and sisters at these Bible studies are doing, it's like abrupt. It's not something that was planned out over a year. And so going to these texts in Genesis, it hits different during this time period because you can actually relate to a lot of the different things that are happening, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And I'm glad people are moving out of there. Yeah, I'm glad. So for a variety of reasons, but that's probably a whole nother show.